Hello, everyone. All right, so this is the guided practice. So I want you to work on these problems on your own. And when you get done with one or two, I want you to press pause and then come and see the worked out answer to see if you got it correct or not. So remember, when we're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, what you want to do is you have a couple choices on how to do these problems. You can use long division, which I would suggest, but you can also use mental math. And remember, if you can figure out that a denominator you can turn it by multiplying it into either a 10 or 100, then that makes the problem a lot easier. So remember, when you're looking at these problems, to think about that, because you can either do it with long division or mental math. Okay, go ahead and get started. How about you do number 1, and then you can do number 1 and then press pause and come back and see how you did. All right, we're back. So we're going to write 2/5 as an example. So I know that 2/5, I can turn this 5 into a 10 if I multiply it by 2. And if I multiply it by the 2 to the bottom, I have to multiply it by 2 to the top because 2 divided by 2 is 1, and I can do that. So that ends up being 2 times 2, which is 4, 5 times 2, which is 10. That's 4/10, which is the same thing as 0. This is the tenths place right here, so 4/10. So that would be the answer there. Now, if you did long division, that's totally fine. You would have to go 2 divided by 5. So 2 divided by 5. 5 cannot go into 2, so you need to add a 0. Can 5 go into 20? When you put the decimal here, you have to put it up there, sorry. Can 5 go into 20? Yes, it can. 5 can go in there 4 times. And there you have your answer as well, 0.4. So 2 different ways to do the same thing. All right, if you got that right, awesome job. Let's move on to number 2. So go ahead and do 2, 3, 4, and 5. When you get done with those, press pause and then, press pause now and do 2, 3, 4, and 5. And when you get done, press play and let's see how you did. Go over the answers. All right, we are doing 3/4. Now, when I'm looking at 3/4, I know that I can turn this into 100 if I multiply 4 by 25. And so if I do that to the bottom, I can also do that to the top. Now, some of you guys might have done long division, and that's totally fine. I'll do the long division in just a second. But I want to do the mental math approach first. So whenever I'm thinking of 25, I'm thinking about quarters, right? So if I have 4 quarters, I have $1, and $1 is the same thing as 100 cents. And then 3 times 25, that's like 3 quarters. 3 quarters is 75 cents. So it's 75 100ths, which is the same thing as 0. This is the tenths, this is the hundredths place, so it'd be 75 100ths, or 0.75. Right there, there's our answer. So let's go ahead and do the long division for those that did the long division approach. 3 divided by 4. Now, can 4 go into 3? No, it cannot. So that means I need to put the decimal there and add a 0. Can 4 go into 30? Yes, it can. It can go in 7 times. 7 times 4 is 28, and then we subtract. 30 minus 28 is 2. I could do that, 10, and that becomes 2. 10 minus 8 is 2. And I have a remainder, so whenever you have a remainder, you got to add a 0 and then drop it down. And then does 4 go into 20? Yes, it does. It goes in 5 times, and then 5 times 4 is 20, and we no longer have a remainder, so we know that our answer is 0.75. So 2 different ways to do the same problem. All right, great. Let's move on to number 3, 7/8. Now, for 7/8, I don't think I can really do the mental math approach because 8 doesn't go into 10 or 100 evenly. So we're just going to go straight to the long division. So this is 7 divided by 8. Now, 8 can't go into 7, so I have to add a decimal. Can 8 go into 70? Yes, it can. It goes in, I think, 8 times, because 8 times 8 is 64. So 8 times 8 is 64. Then we do the subtraction. 10 minus 4 is 6. We add a 0, and then we drop it down. 8 goes into 60 7 times. 7 times 8 is 56. We subtract. Have to borrow, make that a 5. 10 minus 6 is 4. Still a remainder, so I have to add another 0 and drop it down. 8 goes into 40 5 times. 5 times 8 is 40. And there's no remainder, so that's our answer, 0.875. Boom, boom, boom. Perfect. Okay, I hope you got that one right. Let's go on to the next one, 3/2. Now, 3/2, I can do the mental math approach because I know that I can make this 2 into a 10. So 3/2, I am going to multiply this by 5, multiply this by 5. 5/5 is 1. I can multiply any number by 1 and I get the same number. So when I do this, I have 3 times 5 is 15. 2 times 5 is 10. Yes, it's 10. So I have 15 tenths. So here I have my decimal. This is my tenths place. So with this one, 15 is over 10. So I would put the 5 there and I would put the 1 there. It may be easier for you to think about it if you change this. It's an improper fraction because the number on top is bigger than the number on the bottom. So maybe if you turn this into a mixed number, 10 goes into 15 one time and there's 5 left over. So, you know, that might be an easier way to think about it. There's 1 and then there's 5 tenths. You get the same thing, you know what I mean? But it's 1 and 5 tenths. That would be 1.5. That's the answer. Okay, let's do the long division for anybody that did the long division. So that's 3 divided by 2. Does 2 go into 3? Yes, it does, 1 time. 1 times 2 is 2, and then I'm going to subtract 3 minus 2 is 1. I have to have a remainder, so I need to add a 0, which means I need to add that decimal in. Then I drop this down. 2 goes into 10 5 times. 5 times 2 is 10, and then there's no remainder. So the answer is 1.5. All right. And on to number 5. We have 5 divided by 3. Now for this one, I cannot use mental math. 3 doesn't go into 100 or 10. So I just need to go straight to the long division. So that's what I'm going to do. 5 divided by 3. So does 3 go into 5? Yes, it does. It goes in 1 time. 1 times 3 is 3. Then I subtract. 5 take away 3 is 2. I have a remainder, so I need to add the decimal, add a 0, drop it down. I have 20. Does 3 go into 20? Yes, it does. It goes in 6 times. 6 times 3 is 18. I have to borrow, and I subtract. That becomes a 1. 10 minus 8 is 2. There's a remainder, so I have to add another 0. Okay, does 3 go into 20? Yes, it does. 6 times. 6 times 3 is 18. And then what this looks like, it looks like I am getting into a repeating decimal where it's going to be 1.66666. So we know this is a repeating decimal. An accurate way to write this would be 1.6 with a line over the top. That's called a vinculum. But in our answer, it says round to the nearest thousandth if necessary. So that's what we need to do. We need to do what it says, round to the nearest thousandth. So we have 1.66666, right? This is the tenths place. This is the hundredths place. This is the thousandths place. So we're going to look right here, and that's a 5 or above, so it's going to round this up to a 7. So our answer is going to be 1.667. So you always have to make sure to read the answers and follow the directions because it does say round to the nearest thousandth. So hopefully you got all 4 of those right. If you did, great job. And let's move on to 6, 7, and 8. It says write each decimal as a fraction or mixed number in simplest form. So go ahead, try those out. So pause, work them out, and when you get done, press play and we'll go over the answers. All right, we are back. Okay, for the first one, number 5, we have 8/10. So we're just going to write that as a fraction. That's in the tenths place. So we have 8/10. And then we're just going to simplify this. So is there a common factor? Well, I know that both of these are divisible by 2. 2 is in them. So 2 times 4 is 8, and 2 times 5 is the same thing as 10. And we know if we look at this 2 divided by 2, that's the same thing as 1. And so what we're left with is 1 times 4/5, which is just the same thing as 4/5. So 4/5 would be your answer. However, I would be totally okay if for 8/10 you recognize that 2 goes into 8 4 times and 2 goes into 10 5 times, and you get your answer 4/5 that way. That is okay with me. So let's go on to number 7. So this is 2 and 25/100ths. So how you say that is 2, the decimal you say the word and, so 2 and 25/100ths. Okay, so let's go ahead and write this as a fraction. So I'm going to write it as a mixed number, the big 2, and then 25, this is tenths 100ths, 25/100ths. So now we just need to reduce this. Now, is there a number that you know that goes into both 25 and 100? Well, I know that 25 goes into both of these because I can rewrite 25 as 25 times 1, and I can rewrite 100 as 25 times 4. Now, this 25 divided by 25, or over 25, that's the same thing as 1. 1 times 1/4 is the same thing as 1/4. So the answer is 2 and 1/4. Now, if you're doing this problem, 2 and 25 over 100, and you recognize that 25 went into both, you could say, hey, 25 goes into 25 1 time, 25 goes into 100 4 times. My answer is 2 and 1/4, and I would be okay with that. Okay, let's move on to number 8. For number 8, we have negative 0.02 or negative 2/10, negative 2/100. So we're going to write that negative 2/100. 10/100, yes, that's right. Okay, so what is a number that goes into both of those? What is a common factor? Well, this is even and this is even, so I know that 2 goes into them. So we're going to have a negative 2 times 1, and 100 is the same thing as 2 times 50. So this 2 divided by 2, or 2 over 2, that's going to be 1, and so what we're going to be left with is negative 1 over 50. And that is the that's the answer. But again, I would be okay if you recognize and you saw this and you know that 2 goes into both of those. 2 goes into 2 1 time, 2 goes into 100 50 times. Your answer is negative 1/50th. Do not forget about that negative, okay? That's really, really important. But yeah, there you go. There's the answer. If you got that right, great job, and we will see you next time.